have concerns that it's not a true representation of the populace of the 23 to 24,000 people that don't get to the meetings. 161 people showed up at deliberative session. I had some water problems at home, so I had to stay home and missed it. But I think I would support the possibility of changing it so that it goes to an up or down vote on election day. There's a lot of things that you could look at. That would be one of the things if you want to try to bring back people to vote. I think a lot of people just have a hard time now getting out to meetings on Saturdays because there's just so much going on. For instance, town meeting last year, I believe there was a whole bunch of things going on. There was a band thing going on. People's lives are busy now. Yeah, busier. There's so many distractions now as compared to 50, 60 years ago. I just don't think that we can support, if you really want a true feeling of how the voters want, you know, the will of the voters, then I think you really do need to look at changes to how we do things.
All right, thank you. And Trent, your second question, and we'll start with Mr. Brown.
Did Gary get to answer that question? You missed Gary, I think.
Gary? No, I answered it first.
Oh, he did
First? Okay, excellent.
Thank you, though.
Yeah. Moving right along.
Yeah. We saw this year that the planning board's capital improvements plan is truly just that, a plan. We saw how important the town council's feeling on capital improvements can play into the entire process. As a councilor over your 3 years, what capital improvements could you see supporting?
You first?
Michael.
Okay. Yeah, truer words were never spoken. That is a planning tool. It's a guide that comes through the planning board related to their state RSA mandated roles and responsibilities. So the town is fortunate, one, to have a planning process, a planning board, and the ability to put forward a guide for all of us, councilors and taxpayers included, to see what kind of infrastructure improvements and capital planning we should do over the course of a 6-year period. That's a good thing. I absolutely support the process. I'm glad we have it. I believe it works. When it comes time to make the actual policy decision as to whether that plan will be strictly followed, as I said in my opening question, you have to judge the capital plan in the context of what's occurring in your real world at that point in time. So I don't think you plow forward necessarily with whatever plan is earmarked for this year if the economy and your constituents are telling you through their feedback and through what you're seeing that it just isn't the right thing to do this year. So I believe, as a counselor, I would look at the plan on an annual basis, which is what the planning board does, by the way. They review this plan every year, as they should. That's what counselors should do, review it every year and make the best decision they can as to whether they should move forward with a given project. To answer your question more specifically, Trent, in terms of what projects, these projects are prioritized and rank ordered in terms of the ones that have the most impact on things like emergency situations or public safety. That's the right thing to do. So if a project came before me next year and I was convinced that its ranking was dire enough that we should push forward, I would likely support putting that on the warrant for people to vote. So instead of giving you specific projects, I would look at it annually based on what's in the plan and make the appropriate decision at that point.
I agree with Mike relative to looking at the plan and making a specific decision at the time. I do, however, think that the fire station needs to be a priority next year. It's been put off for a few years now. The building itself is dilapidated. There's many issues there. It has employee safety concerns. And I also believe that it's an infrastructure investment into the community and attracting more businesses up and around the airport and off of Exit 5. Planning is a dynamic environment and a tool for being proactive with infrastructure. To be specific with 5 projects, I can't do that right now, but I know the fire station needs to be there. At least that one has to be there.
Mr. DeMarco.
Okay, thank you. The CIP, as Mike mentioned, is a plan. It's non-binding. It gives guidance to the planning, to the town council, the planning board, the budget committee, and so forth on what may be a priority in the upcoming 6 years. It's sort of a rolling window, and I think it's an excellent process. It, along with other tools such as the master plan, I think are important tools always to guide. They were what I used for guidance as a planning board member, and I would continue to use for guidance as a town councilor. I do agree, though, is that you have to look at the context. Just because something was put on 2 years ago to be a priority or a high priority item maybe in fiscal year 2010 or 2011, when we get to those years and we actually do the budgeting, we may find that we have a dire emergency that needs to be addressed, and we may have to shift that out. We may find, you know, let's say, for example, we found a problem with one of our schools or a bridge that needed to be replaced. That obviously would have to bubble to the surface, and as a planning or as a town councilor, you need to take that into consideration. So once again, I think it's a great tool. I'm glad we have it, and it's I would continue to use it for guidance as a town councilor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Keefe.
Thank you. Well, a lot of what I had to say, Mike Brown kind of hit on, and then Paul hit on it, and Mike Carey hit on it. The CIP is a great tool. It's a good guidance process for the council to weigh in from other, you know, other associated board members' opinions. I think I took a lot of heat from folks when it came to the South School replacement building for the portables. After touring that, I changed my mind and did a complete 180. The place definitely is in need for the students that are there and the teachers that are there. Excuse me. The fire station in North Londonderry, I supported that last year. I support it again this year. I understand why the council made the decision not to put it on. I'll plug a little thing going on. We looked at, as far as an alternative of taking money out of the open space fund, I supported that warrant article that Tom Freda presented. You look at all the options you can. The voters said no to open space, so I thought, hey, it sounds like a great idea. Why don't we try to take the money, it won't cost the taxpayers anything, we've already bonded it, and put it towards building the North Fire Station. I took the tour of that. That fire station's in horrible shape. If I was a firefighter, I don't think I'd be happy working in it, and I support that. I think the other big thing is what Paul DeMarco hit on was the roads, the infrastructure. I've noticed a lot of the roads in town, they need help. We've put it off, and now we're going to be paying for it. But we need to stay with it and make sure that the roads don't fall apart, because that costs everybody money. If you hit a pothole and $800 later, you're fixing your car. And that's money that you're taking out of your budget to fix that could have been done just by paying your taxes and, you know, keeping things on the course. So, and I think another big thing that I would look at is trying to see other bonds fall off the table. Let's pay off some of the debt. Let that fall off. And then when the emergencies do come up, you have no problem going to the taxpayers and saying, we need to replace this. So you bring it forward, and then you've got the money to do it. Instead of stretching yourself and making the tax rate go up, you're planning better. And I guess what I'm trying to say is my own personal budget, you budget the money, you spend what you need to spend for your monthly bills, and then you're always looking to put some away for when something comes up. Well, it's the same thing. I'm not going to overspend my budget and overfinance things that I can't afford if something else happens. So it's just, to me, it's a good way of planning. The CIP does a great job at that, and it's a good tool, and I think it's a very valuable tool. And I see that continuing and being an absolute part of what we do here. And I just think that we need to be more conservative as far as what we are bonding. And my top three was that, and then after that, I would say that I would have to, as a counselor, want to make sure that we, let some bonds fall off the table, get a little bit caught up, so to speak. Thank you.
And Mr. Vermillion.
Another excellent question. I think everything has been, all the questions have been basically about budget, about the money coming in and the money going out. And it's a hard process for the planning board to sit down and prioritize what do we really need. Personally, I think my support would be fixing South School first. I think children should be put first. And then maybe later on we'll find the money for the North Station to have that completed. Again, there are other avenues, I believe, that we can go to, either the state or federal level, to find funding for those projects. And I'm really concerned about going to the citizens of the town asking for more money for tax and spend projects that we keep on doing.